The next dynamic is the keyhole effect. So imagine this scenario. You are pretty sure that your organization is about to make a decision about whether it's going to pursue a particular project. You see on your calendar that there are two colleagues who are kind of connected to that project having a meeting to talk about it. You then ask if you can join the meeting so that you can hear what they are saying and sort of how they're thinking about it, when really you just want to know, is it going to go forward? This is a really common dynamic to experience when you are on the outside trying to look into that keyhole to sort of see what's going on in that room. And sometimes it's easy to forget when you're in the room that there may be people that want access to the information that is being discussed in the conversation. And why is this a problem? For you, it can feel like you don't have the information you need to do your job. So maybe things happen in your organization that surprise you regularly, or you're never quite sure what's going to come down the pike. It also means that your day can become really full of check-in meetings where you find either you want to join conversations that are happening in other parts of the organization just to make sure you're really in the know of what's going on, or you're regularly needing to connect with people directly to make choices and have these conversations because you are also participating in this dynamic. And the effect that this can have on your team and the problems that it can bring up is that decisions end up being really slow, because what happens is when a decision is made, it's not really clear. And when it's not really clear, people then might come back with questions and say, oh, we've decided that. When did that happen? And you end up having multiple meetings when one well-communicated meeting might have been enough. And then decisions and influence can start feeling opaque and confusing. This is a really big problem in remote organizations because there's less information available at that interpersonal and social level about what's going on. So implicit communication is a lot more difficult to find in remote spaces. And that means people project into that gap of information whatever is on their mind. So once people get it in their heads that there's certain people on the team that make choices without consulting other people, it's really easy for them to feel as though when meetings are happening that they're not invited to, that dynamic is continuing. And that isn't healthy, and it can lead to all kinds of mistrust and all kinds of confusion, even if what people think is happening is not actually happening. And it can also make it unclear who in the organization is actually influencing which decisions. And then corollarily, if I wanted to influence decisions, how would I do that becomes unclear. And that just makes it a lot harder for people to meaningfully participate. And it encourages passivity, where people say, well, I guess if I can't be involved in the decision, I'll just wait to hear. And those kinds of dynamics can be really problematic in remote spaces because in the same way, it's difficult to find that implicit information about decisions and power in an organization. It's also hard to read when people are checking out and when they're no longer in good faith trying to participate because they don't trust that that participation is valued and that there's a place for that in your organization. So those are the problems that come with this. And the key sort of unlocking thing for this dynamic is to identify how decisions are made and communicated. This can be really prickly, and it can feel sometimes like formalizing things in an overly formal way. So maybe you are uncomfortable with writing down, this is how a decision gets made in our organization, because it's not always clear. It can be difficult to do that. But it's really important if you notice the keyhole effect, where people are clamoring to join meetings just in case something important happens in it. It's really important to address it directly. And part of that is identifying how decisions are made, but also how they're communicated. So when a choice is made, how long after will I know? How will I know if I can influence it or if it's a final decision? And how will I know the effects that that decision will have on other aspects of my work? So for an exercise, look at your calendar and think about it from the perspective of you being the one in the room and other people being on the outside of that door trying to look into the keyhole to see what's going on. What decisions are you making this week and who are they going to impact? And then how will you communicate these decisions? So part of this is also identifying what decisions you're actually making, because sometimes in the flow of our work, we don't realize that we are making choices day in and day out. And a first step can be effectively communicating the decisions we're currently making, and then seeing how that feels and seeing how that opens up space for conversation about how decisions are made in your organization.